I had zero idea why my brain decided to log this thing, to keep it in my memories, but I can picture it as if it was yesterday. There was this muzzle flash and a burst of fire simultaneously, and I'd seen this loads of times before, so it's not like it was something that particularly stood out compared to what I'd seen before, but I had this muzzle flash and a burst of fire, and I instantly recognized the sound of this belt-fed machine gun, and I wheeled to my left, and it was this sudden change in my state. From the stillness of dawn to alert, looking down the sight unit of my rifle as it came off into my shoulder and I took a knee. And the first thing you do in this situation when you go through any kind of military training is you learn to put down a rapid burst of suppressive fire. So that's what I did. But this was the first time in my life, in my entire military career, that I resisted the urge to squeeze off these kind of haphazard shots at what I thought might be the faintest glimpse of the target. I resisted the urge to squeeze off this haphazard shots, and I took the decision to just still myself, to slow down. I could feel my elbow, like I can still visualize it like it was yesterday. I could feel my elbow resting on my knee to create the stability throughout my body. I could feel how grounded my weight was and how stable it was. And as I looked through the crosshairs of my sights unit, the slightest movement in the shrub caught my eye, and I flicked off the safety, and my finger took up the tension of the trigger. And what was going through my head was, not yet. Not yet. And then I got like a glimpse of the target. And was that his boot? What was that? And until this point, I'd always wondered if you'd ever know if you'd actually shot your target. I mean, I'd heard so many stories from friends who had deployed from Afghanistan and some who had deployed to Iraq. And it sounded like there were so many of you firing at so many targets that were so far away that you'd never know if your rounds found their target or not. In fact, I remember my dad did the thing that you're not supposed to do when he met one of my friends. And he said, well, so when you deployed to Afghanistan, did you shoot anyone? And he said, well, I hope so. I fired so many shots, so many rounds that I'd hope that one of them hit. And it kind of made me think, well, do you ever know in this scenario? And that's at odds with some of the stories that I've heard, but those kind of things stuck out in my mind. And more to the point, every time that I'd fired a rifle at moving targets in training until this point, I'd been filled with this panic and stress and frankly, a lack of skill. So I was just spraying haphazardly, even though I had the training. But now it was different. I took my time for the first time. I calmed myself as I scanned this progressively expanding area around where I saw that initial muzzle flash. Then I saw him. He'd moved like 25 meters or so without seeing me. Like, this guy's good. But I had a straight shot. And I lined the crosshairs up in the center of his chest and fired quick 3 rounds. I was certain he would fall. I knew at that moment that I'd hit him. Yet something clicked in the back of my mind, like, he didn't fall. And that's because I was just in training outside Portsmouth in a training area just near there. Because one part of me was convinced that I was at war in this moment, and the other part knew that I was in this training area just outside Portsmouth. So of course he didn't fall. I was just firing blanks, and it was like one of our final exercises before the tests that would actually give me my green beret. So why did this stick with me? Why am I telling you I learned a lesson that day that was going to stay with me for years, and that would actually go on to help the 1,000+ clients that I've served along the way. What I found in that moment was the power of stillness. Stillness in that moment is what had allowed me to be certain I would hit the target. And stillness is what so many freedom seekers are desperately lacking. In the first few years of, let's say, running a business, especially a small business, the owner is dominated by this like haphazard, frantic, got to do everything, just like me in that early example of like spraying from the hip, like wild bursts of fire. You got to do everything. And this is the stage in any new pursuit of anything that you want in your life, anything that you turn this urgency towards and turn this goal pursuit towards. What usually happens in the business owner example is you're halfway through writing the social media post and the client calls, and then that finishes, and then your partner texts you and you've got to take the shopping out, but then you've got to get back to your work. And it's the same kind of approach when you're thinking about nutrition. It's like, well, I'm going to make this big change, so I've got to track my calories here, and then I don't know what I'm doing here, so I've got to jump onto the calorie counter, and then I've got to plan my meal for the next meal, and I don't know what I'm doing, and I'm going from thing to thing to thing. It's really surrounded by the sense of urgency. And any quiet moments, especially in this constant hustle culture that we have, are filled. Jam your AirPods in, you listen to a podcast, we consume constantly engaging our brain, constantly moving, constantly frenetic. And usually, for most people, this happens for 14 hours a day. And it's not only the physical actions that are rushed, it's the mental state too, jumping from place to place to place to place to place. Emotions ping around from anxiety to excitement to joy to fear to hope, and then everything else in between in this very short period. Your thoughts are all over the place. I've spoken to so many people now who experience this freneticism, and all they're longing for is a 3-hour block of very few distractions so they can focus on what they know they need to be doing, what they know is important. The urgency is their dominant state, and they've got 10 targets that they feel they need to hit right now, and they want to try and hit all of them at the same time. And there's this initial stage in any goal pursuit where you have to hit all the targets right now, but you've probably moved a bit beyond that. The hope is that at some point you're going to get to this elusive next level. And at that point, you can put some pauses in your day, and you can gather your thoughts and slow down and gain some calm. But the truth says something very different to what they hope, which is until you create stillness, you can't hit your next level. It is the stillness that facilitates that. The early stage business owner or the early stage dieter is right to rush. You need to iterate quickly, and you really don't know enough to know what is going to work. Once you've got even the baseline of success, the smallest part of success though, getting the direction right is what's key. And eventually, you have to start aiming more carefully, just like a soldier pulling up that rifle to the shoulder, stilling the mind and the body, taking a breath, and then squeezing the trigger at this rate that is so delicate and so slow in the application of pressure that the shot actually firing surprises you. Finding stillness allows your thoughts to dissipate, to spin out, to slow down. Stillness allows your body to rid itself of the tension of whatever it's holding on to. It allows you to aim precisely with the shots and hit your highest value target. For the business owner, in most cases, the fear is that if you get still, then you'll run out of time and you'll miss opportunities and you'll eventually screw up. Frenetic activity, which is the opposite of stillness, it's that constant hustle and grind. What I found is it comes from this fear and is born from scarcity. Scarcity saying, there's not enough time. Hey, there's not enough money. Actually, in fact, there isn't enough of anything. So I've got to fight tooth and nail for what I can possibly grab. That is the scarcity mentality. It says there isn't enough, period. The problem with that urgency is that it is entirely self-perpetuating. The more you rush, the more you feel like you need to rush. It has this energy to it that is completely addictive. And then what we know at that point is cortisol is flooding through your system and just becomes relied upon, that stress hormone. We know that cortisol reduces your ability to think clearly and even form memories. And cortisol is produced when we encounter situations that scare us. Urgency, scarcity, and rushing burns business owners out. Scarcity hates stillness, and stillness is the antidote to scarcity. Stillness, it creates a mind that works for you. Here's the big thing. For the soldier, stillness means being a little bit vulnerable. It's much harder to hit a moving target, and we know that. And just like the soldier lining up a shot in a war zone, it takes courage and it takes self-trust to take a knee, pause for a moment, breathe, line up your shot and take it. Similarly, it takes courage, self-trust to take 20 minutes before your workday to still your mind with meditation. Pull out your journal quickly to self-reflect and isolate your 2 essential tasks for the day. It takes even more courage and self-trust to put your phone in another room and only do what you need to do and not a drop more, and then to recover and recuperate. As you progress in any journey, and especially the world of entrepreneurship, growth is about leverage, leveraging your time and effort. Freneticism, on the other hand, is focused on the small, the ambiguous, the immediate, and the urgent. Stillness is focused on high leverage, high reward, and long term. Success isn't built through frenetic, crazy activity. It's built through a still mind. And so too is optimal mental performance. Now, if you want to find out 6 proven techniques to cultivate that stillness in both body and mind, I've actually written a full article about this. And you can find it by heading to tomfoxley.me. That's Tom, Foxley.me.